Red God Almighty, I can pick and feel the cotton. Red God Almighty, I can pick and feel the day. Red God Almighty, I can pick and feel the cotton. Red God Almighty, I can pick and feel the day. Oh Lord, I can pick and feel the cotton. Oh Lord, I can pick and feel the day. Oh Lord, I can pick and feel the cotton. Oh Lord, I can pick and feel the day. Oh, me and my wife can pick and feel the cotton. Me and my wife can pick and feel the day. Me and my wife can pick and feel the cotton. Me and my wife can pick and feel the day.
Hi, you were listening to Leadbelly. He's one of the pioneers of the whole folk and blues movement in the country. This is Pickabella Cartman, which, as most of you know, it was like a standard again for the black slaves who have to come into the country and for picking cotton. And in the beginning of the song, when you hear the full song, you see he talks about how they had to make sure that they always did the right thing. It was very important for them. So, and this is the beginning of our country music session. I'm Yusuf Gandhi.
I'm Janis Siegel. This is Music, the Unifying Force. And we're just going to be discussing and examining the huge genre of country music.
Yes. And I don't think we'll be finished
No,
this session.
will never be finished.
Yes.
Now, when I was growing up, I remember hearing this Leadbelly too. And I always thought it was pick a bale of cotton. Oh Lord, I'll pick a bale of hay. That's the way we sang it, fun. But to hear Leadbelly sing it is really moving. And so why did we start with Leadbelly, you might ask?
Yes, because he was he's one of the influences on country music. In fact, as we spoke about earlier too, that country music was also influenced by African American slaves who came in, just like most forms of the music in his country. And this was, of course, country music was also influenced by the Irish, Scottish settlers who came in and a lot of them stayed in the Appalachian regions, and especially in North Carolina and, going across the Appalachians to even to Kentucky and all those areas. Their music is very much close to the folk music of Africa as well. Music, that's why we talk about it, that music is so connected everywhere. And we're going to start actually with an artist, one of these artists from the early 1900s, Charlie Acuff, who was actually taught by his father, actually, Charlie Acuff Sr., and
Playing fiddle.
And playing fiddle, yes. And he talks about, actually, again, we're just going to play a bit of his song, but when you hear the track that we are playing, which we will give you the full track of, he talks about picking, finger picking guitar, how he was taught, how they, put circles and all that his father put to let him play. And there was one of the things about them is they didn't really have songs. They heard a song, they liked it, and they played it. And that's how it started, because they were just coming in, they were learning from, they were bringing their culture.
It was all oral traditions. You pass things down by teaching someone else from a younger generation. Can I just say also, this was just a fascinating journey to go through this music from the beginning, and see that country music is probably one of the most American styles, except for jazz. It comes from immigrants. It comes from the Scottish and the Irish and the British immigrants that came to this country first, and all the music they brought with it, all of the traditions they brought with them, plus the field hollers, the gospel music, the cowboy songs, all mushed up into this big genre.
All sort of making it a genre which took from every other culture as as years passed, and they met different immigrants coming in, and they took from each other's cultures, and that was the whole.
That's America.
That is America, actually. And first, let's start with Charlie Acuff, and it's called Songs of the Appalachia. There are few songs they play because they're very short pieces, but we've just played one.
Really, it's country music, I guess. my grandfather's tunes. I don't know where he learned them, but the Salvation Army was playing a tune, and my grandfather didn't know what the name of it was, so he just called it the Salvation Army.
Do you notice he's playing fiddle left-handed?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he talks about it, that I would only left-handed fiddle at that time.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's interesting. Next, we're going to hear Bayard Gray, right? Interesting, also a fiddler.
So a fiddler, again, of the same generation, and the early 1930s, 1930s.
But his style was very interesting because he's got, they call it crooked phrasing. He drops beats or adds beats whenever he feels like it.
Yeah. And the song he's done is, again, as we said, he just played any song they heard. And this song is something that we used to teach our kids. Polly, put the kettle on. You know, that's what he's playing.
This is Bart Ray, down in North Carolina, in the mountains here, in the edge of the Great Smokies. We're going to try to play a little Polly Put the Kettle On for my good friend Pete Hoover from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Doesn't it make you want to dance?
Yes. And without any percussion or anything.
Oh, no. Well,
They were like, that's what it was, what country was, about dancing.
right. You just stomped away and did your clogging or whatever.
Yes.
And there's a vocal style also, yes, with the unlikely title of diddling, where you just do vocal music that was for dancing.
Yes.
You know, with the beat. So this is all the beginnings of the big pot that became country music. But the first family, this is the 20s now, right? 20s, 1927. The Carter family really started it all. You've got, I think, the grandfather, A.P. Carter, and the whole family, including June. So wow, what a legacy! They were really the first vocal group, if we're talking about vocal groups, to become country stars, right? And radio was starting at that time, correct? So radio really had a great impact on the dispersion of the music as well. So we should hear some
Carter family,
Yeah.
yes. And the circle piano.
I was standing by the window on one cold and cloudy day, and I saw the hearse come rolling for to carry my mother away. Oh, can the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by?
Oh yeah, Mother Maybelt. That's who that female voice was. She had quite a distinctive guitar playing style as well. And reading about them, they did this thing called shape singing, which I still really don't understand, but it's fascinating. They use different shapes to denote different intervals
Right.
between pitches. And you can see some of the manuscripts. I think probably the Smithsonian, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Smithsonian would be the best place. And I hope it stays on.
Yes, that's fingers crossed on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Carter family was the beginning of it all. And then after them, things just got crazy. Jimmie Rodgers, right?
Was the first one of the first people to start yodeling.
Thank God. Yeah. Now, where did that come from? I don't know.
I guess it was from Switzerland, right? But I'm not sure. But,
I don't know. I don't know.
Could be from Ireland too, I'm sure there'd be.
Yeah, maybe more, I would guess more from Ireland. If anybody listening knows the answer to this, there will be a prize. But anyway, Jimmie Rodgers became a big star, and he used yodeling in his singing. And he also influenced generations of country music people. Unfortunately, he died though at age 35. He was always kind of sickly, or tuberculosis maybe, which is amazing because she was singing on top of that lung disease. He brought this authenticity with him, because he actually worked on the real.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's play, I think, Blue Yodel.
Blue Yodel number 9.
It was down in Memphis, corner of Beale and Main. He says, big boy, you'll have to tell me your name. I said you'll find my name on the tail of my shirt. I'm a Tennessee hustler, I don't have to wait.
And you can see the jazz influences here and the blues influences in this song right away. The trumpet, the way it's playing, that almost like from New Orleans.
Very influential to a lot of musicians. Jimmie Rodgers and Where Are the Women, you might ask.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we've got Patsy Cline coming up. Now, almost every musician I know loves Patsy Cline. Just the honesty and authenticity of her singing. Certainly a big proponent has been Katie Lang.
Yes.
Who was produced by Owen Bradley, who was Patsy's original producer. She was like a pop star, right? She was on Arthur Godfrey.
Yes.
She died in a plane crash. She was only 30 years old, I think.
Yeah, she died very young.
Very young. But man, she had, when I first heard Walking After Midnight, crazy. I Fall to Pieces.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe her singing. Beautiful. We're going to hear Walking After Midnight.
Yeah, Walking
right?
I go out walking after midnight, out in the moonlight, just like we used to do. I'm always walking after midnight, searching for you.
Again, the R&B swing comes in right away.
Exactly. And powerful. But it's not overpowering, and it's still intimate, which is a nice combo. Warm and powerful and intimate at the same time. Really beautiful singing. And then right after Patsy Cline, we had Hank Williams, who again influenced so many musicians.
Yes.
Say, hey, good looking, what you got cooking? How's about cooking something up with me? Hey, sweet baby, don't you think maybe we could find us a brand new recipe?
Oh, yeah. Again, died early. Died like 29 or something. He had a troubled life, which probably gives his voice more resonance.
More feeling, more emotion.
But definitely an influence on Elvis and probably Dylan.
I'm sure. I'm sure it would be all of them,
Yeah.
A whole group of young rock singers
And folk singers.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. All of this is happening, and then we have, we mentioned her before, Loretta Lynn, who is friends with Patsy Cline.
Yes, I do.
She's the coal miner's daughter.
Right. Yeah.
She's the coal miner's daughter, but she became like a regular at the Grand Ole Opry we should mention as well. The Ryman Auditorium, and that was a huge radio show. You could sit in your home And if you had a radio, lucky enough to have a radio, you could listen to the whole show at the Grand Ole Opry. I remember what a thrill it was to visit there and go to Tootsie's Orchid Lounge next door, the famous bar where they all went during intermission. And then to actually play there was thrilling, absolutely thrilling. But Loretta Lynn knew from whence what she sang of. She was from a rough blue-collar upbringing, and she wrote songs about it.
And she changed the whole way, like, women sort of were featured in music and how they use their music, just not to sing love songs.
Yes, to talk about real things.
Yes.
She tackled many subjects that were not spoken of
In those days.
in those days.
And normally you don't expect country singers to sing that because they come in a much more conservative background. And as we go, a lot of people have been influenced by her now, the younger artists, and you see them coming out much more.
I think she wrote Don't Come Home from drinking with loving on your mind. Very, very unusual for her time. Let's hear a little Loretta Lynn.
Yes, we're listening to Paul Miner's daughter.
Well, I was born to coal miner's daughter in a cabin on a hill in Butcher Holler. We were poor, but we had love. That's the one thing that Daddy made sure of. He shoveled coal to make a poor man's dollar.
That's good. Some good storytelling right there. Yeah, you can feel it. Really amazing. We're going to move on now to Ernest Tubb. Ernest Tubb. Now, when I first went to Nashville, because I had a trio, acoustic guitar trio. We went down to Nashville. My first time there, I went straight to Ernest Tubb's record store. He might have still even been alive, but it was such a thrill to see him. And now, also, another thing I discovered while reading about this music is the subgenres of country, one of which is honky-tonk music. And Ernest Tubb was a pioneer in that subgenre. Good, like a good time. I'm at the bar with my best gal or guy.
Yeah, and it was basically, I think, out of the whole ragtime era, piano playing, as he talked about.
Very similar. Very similar, yeah. Yeah, honky-tonk. It became a verb, basically. Let's go honky-tonk. Yeah. Ernest Tubb. And he helped popularize the electric guitar as well. So this was a big step in the country music. Yeah, it was usually just acoustic instrumentation. No drums at all.
No drums. Normally they didn't have drums.
No.
Right.
Especially even in bluegrass.
Bluegrass, no. Initially,
Which we'll get to, by the way, in case you're wondering. That's another subgenre.
And we will be doing that in the next episode, which is episode 12. So that's going to be an episode on bluegrass. Right now, let's go to country and Ernest Tubb.
I'm walking the floor over you. I can't sleep a wink, that is true. I'm hoping and I'm praying as my heart breaks right in two. Walking the floor over you.
Yeah. He was a mentor as well to Patsy Cline, I think. And probably Loretta Lynn as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can still visit Ernest Tubb's record store in the original. I know it's still there. After Ernest Tubb, we're going to play a little Roy Acuff, or?
Yes, it's Roy Acuff. Okay, yes. Why don't we play and then we can talk about it?
Yes. Let's hear some Roy.
From the great Atlantic Ocean to the wide Pacific shore, from the queen of flowing mountains to the south bells by the shore,
She's mighty tall and handsome, she's known quite well by all. She's the combination on the Wabash Cannonball.
Yeah. Now, Roy Acuff was interesting in that I think
He's a businessman.
he was the businessman. He figured it out how to make money as a musician. Start a publishing company. Well, get the publishing royalties. Rose Acuff music. It was, and I think that it helped Nashville establish itself as a center for the music. Really, the publishing was huge down there.
And Nashville became the main sort of, just like New York is for jazz, or
Yeah.
Nashville was the.
It was
Up-
the place.
Yes, and actually, just since we are talking about this, I'd like to tell our listeners and viewers that it would be nice when you go to Nashville, you go to the Country Music Hall of Fame. It's really worth seeing.
Yeah, it was fascinating to see how this music developed. Then we come into one of my very favorite eras for a long time, George Jones. Tortured. You can hear it in his voice. Very influenced by gospel music and artists like Hank Williams and Roy Acuff. But he did not have good luck with relationships or drinking or drugs, or he was just tortured. But what a voice! And I'll tell you, I listened to him a lot when I made a record called "Crying in My Whiskey," which was sort of jazz interpretations of some of his music, and I recorded his version of "He Stopped Loving Her Today." Woo! What a song! The tension that it builds. Are we going to hear that? I hope.
Yeah, that's what we are listening to. Yeah.
Okay. He stopped loving her today.
He said, I'll love you till I die. She told him you forgetting time. I watched the years pass slowly by. She still preyed on his mind.
Oh, see, didn't even get to the big chorus. He was married to Tammy Wynette.
Yes.
There was even a recent miniseries about their marriage with Jessica Chastain, and Michael Shannon plays George Jones. I did see that.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah. I love it. I love this stuff. But George Jones, if you have not checked out George Jones' singing, songwriting, please do. I mean, the song "He Stopped Loving Her Today," I don't want to spoil it for you, but there's only one way he can stop loving her. And then Tammy Wynette, you should get to Tammy Wynette. She was known as the First Lady of Country. Oh, she's the one that did the song DIVRC, the lyrics, right?
Yeah, maybe I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So she was married to George Jones, and "Stand by Your Man" was her big anthemic song. This the first, yeah, which is really aligned with a lot of the values of the South and the Appalachian culture. No matter what, you stand by your man.
Stand by your man. Give him 2 arms to cling to. Something warm to come to when nights are cold and lonely. Stand by your man and show the world you love him.
Interesting. It became controversial, I think, at some point, because it maybe didn't align with the feminist view of things.
Yes, it didn't. But I guess it's still a standard actually in music. So many people have covered this song also. It's a beautiful song.
It is. They had a knack. These country songwriters had a knack for a hook.
Yeah. They were
Much like pop music.
but much like pop music. That's why it always, it had its niche audiences, but it always sold records. It always sold a lot of records.
And that's why country pop
And
became
pop has become a hit.
so popular.
And as we go ahead, we'll see how it develops.
Yes. But right now, we're going to listen to some Charlie Pride, who is the first Black superstar in country music.
And, and he influenced a lot of, Black people come into it.
Right.
Right.
Because there was nary a Black person.
Yes, and it was difficult to get into that sort of, because remember, you're in the South. You are already at a disadvantage.
Right.
South of the Mason-Dixon line, as they call it, you're already, it's difficult to get in. For Charlie Pride to get accepted itself by Grand Ole Opry, they were also difficult. And of course, since then, there have been a few singers like Darius Rucker and others who come in. And we speak more as we go along about these artists. But
there were also the Black Cowboys, a whole sort of forgotten genre, even in the movies. We'll get to that. But cowboys were usually depicted as white. Yes, certainly. But 1 out of 4 cowboys were Black, apparently.
Yes, there were a lot of Black cowboys. In fact, Louisiana, as I told you, like that. And of course, we've talked about Cajun music, which is basically country music also. It's about the same principles of music. And you had musicians who were a lot of Black Cajun, Zydeco musicians.
But then you've also got the influence of the Caribbean.
Yes.
And early jazz.
Yes. And also from the French speaking.
And the French people.
Yes.
French immigrants.
Yes. So it was a whole different, but there were a lot of Black musicians. And as I said, I worked with Gino de la Force, who used to be called the Creole Cowboy. And he had a full ranch and actually, anyway, we'll talk about that when we get into the Cajun music. And there were a lot of other musicians too. It's not him alone, but and then of course Charlie Pride, who basically began this. And I remember once Gino de la Force told me that I wish I could get accepted into the country like Charlie Pride, because Charlie Pride was his mentor.
In the beginning, though, it seems like the record executives weren't exactly trumpeting that he was Black. They kept it quiet, but in tribute to him, his musicality went out. I mean, the music was the thing that people loved, and so it didn't matter. But as always, the record executives just, decided not to let it be known. His talent seemed to have overcome all obstacles.
So here's Charlie Pride.
But just between you and me, I've got my doubts about it. 'Cause just between you and me, you're too much to forget.
Charlie Pride.
Yeah. And of course, it would be just a natural thing to go on to Dolly Parton, actually, from Charlie Pride, because she was one of the most inclusive artists there was in all types of music.
Can't say enough good stuff about Dolly Parton. She was a real bluegrass lover and artist in the beginning. She bridged all of these
all of her genres. And actually, there's lots of, she believed in peace. She believed in all that truly. And which was one of her favorite records of all time? Cat Stevens' Tea for the Tillaman.
Oh, yeah. Well, that had father and son on it.
That's all.
And Peace Train.
Peace Train. And she did a version of Peace Train, And, Cat Stevens had changed it to Yusuf Islam. And after 9/11, it was at that month show when he was coming to the around 2004, I think, he was coming into the U.S. That was the first time he was going to be now coming back to the U.S. after he had left. And for some reason or the other, he was put on the no-fly list.
For some reason?
And, well,
I can't think of the reason.
yeah. He came in, and so they diverted the plane to Maine, got him to offloaded, and he had to go back. And he was coming here to do a record with Dolly Parton. His son was always pushing him to go back, and so he came back and wanted to go back into secular music.
He was quite a great songwriter.
Yes, he wrote some of the greatest songs, the amount of covers that have been done of all his songs. And so Dolly Parton brought him to do a project with her, and he couldn't tell it.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
And she really spoke out about it. And this shouldn't have happened. She said, he's one of the most peaceful people I've ever met.
It was a bad timing.
Yes,
Bad
timing. Yeah, but and it's true, he's very peaceful. And he did so many great things. And Dolly Parton, in fact, collaborated him on that, because of the environment, she collaborated on Where Do the Children Play, all those songs.
Yes.
Yes,
of
collaborated on that song. And in fact, she did a concert with Lady Smith Black Mambazo, and they sang Peace Train together. So perfect. So she was very much into that. In her own way, she was active in the positive side of things. She didn't want to criticize anyone, but she would do things
that's another thing about Dolly.
Yes.
Yeah. Her involvement in social issues and putting her money where her mouth is. Yeah. She's just, I don't know anyone who doesn't love Dolly Parton is wrong.
And actually, the first video after he came back and did his first album, as a secular album, that Yusuf or Cat Stevens did, she and Dolly Parton and Paul McCartney appeared on his video.
Okay. So where does he live?
He lives in London, and he lives. He's got a home in Dubai too. He had gone to Dubai to stay, but he does have a home in London. And he previously also had a place in Greece because he's Greek.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he was an Orthodox Greek.
And he
had no change to Islam.
Embraced Islam.
Yes.
Interesting.
So anyway, we should talk about Dolly Parton.
Yes. I read her bluegrass stuff. I could think is my favorite, rather than the big pop hits. Just Little Sparrow, that for the Breakfast Ticket she did, and some of the harmony stuff she did with Emmylou Harris and Sandra Ronstadt. Just love it. You ever been to Dollywood?
No, I haven't. I've heard of
Neither have I. She made the music accessible in a pop way. She sort of bridged that gap.
And she really was very principled, because when they sort of inducted her into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame recently, she didn't want to be inducted. She said, "I'm not a rock singer." They still eventually wanted to induct her. So she did a duet album with all the major rock artists.
Okay, all right. I guess I can do that. She's amazing. She's
amazing.
Okay, one thing I've always wanted to know is how she plays guitar with those fingernails. I can tell you from being used to be a guitar player, I don't see how it's possible. But yet she does it. What are we going to hear from Dolly?
We are listening to the song, which is a absolute standard. Again, sung by so many people, and that's Jolene.
Jolene, 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 Jolene. Oh, I'm begging of you, please don't take my man. Jolene, 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 Jolene. Please don't take him just because you can.
Now, who's that group that did an answer?
Yeah, that was a group called Chapel Hart. And that's, again, an all-black trio. Very good band. They look very good live. And they were recently on this America's Got Talent, where they were discovered. And they sang this song called You Can Have Him, Jolene. And it's like their whole thing was that. And we will put the song in our unified list that we put in. We will put that song. We'll put them singing it because it's really very well done. It's a very, very. And in fact, the very next day, it seems she emailed them and said thank you for something. She was quite tickled with that. But she said, "I just want to tell you, I still have my man," something like that. She says, but it was, and a lot of people that Darius Rucker asked them to be on their album, and they were invited to the. Within 3 or 4 months, they were invited to perform in the Grand Ole Opry. But, so it's an all-girl group, 3 girls, 3 African-American girls from North Carolina.
Right, so that's going to be in our playlist.
It's going to be in our playlist. And all that, they've done 2 albums. I think all of them are very good records. Then this right there on most of the songs are written by them.
So now we will want to get another subgenre of country music called outlaw music, the Bakersfield sound.
Yes.
You got Merle Haggard, for instance. It was rougher than the Nashville.
More raw.
And the subject matter was different too.
And actually, Merle Haggard played with a lot of the Bay Area musicians, rock musicians, really fond with that.
Oh yeah, he was a big hero.
Yeah.
But he actually did spend time in prison like Johnny Cash. So he knew from whence he spoke, I was saying. Yeah. Great songwriter. Okie from Muskogee.
Yes.
This is. Are we playing that?
Yes, we'll play that. Yeah.
And I'm proud to be an Okie from Muskogee, place where even squares can have a ball. We still wave Old Glory down at the courthouse, and white lightning still the biggest thrill of all.
Yeah. Then Waylon Jennings, also an part of the outlaw country genre. So I think Waylon was one of the first people that used his touring band in the studio, as opposed to the more polished, bashful way of
using studio
musicians who had no real feeling or experience with the music. So he used his touring band to record, which is, makes a lot of sense.
And which is good also for the musicians, so that they have some laws because the artists yes.
Yeah.
So
he was one of the bridges between country and rock music for sure.
Yeah.
Admired, both him and Merle Haggard, admired very much by rock musicians.
Rock musicians, yes.
Yeah.
Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys. Don't let them pick guitars or drive them old trucks. Let them be doctors and lawyers and such. Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys. They'll never stay home. They're always alone, even with someone they love.
Yeah. He's playing electric guitar in that. Yeah. Electric guitar is definitely.
They do a lot of country, like pedal steel and all as well, that became very part of the country.
I love that pedal steel sound. Love it. Buck Owens is next. Also a great businessman.
Yeah.
And the Beatles even covered him.
Yes, Act Naturally. That's Ringo Starr sang that.
Yes, he did. It was one of his few songs they let him sing.
Yes. He loved that. I think he was very much into country music. He was, and so even the couple of other songs that he sang.
Ringo sounds great on it.
He has that country sound. You're trying when he sings, and
he was my favorite Beatle.
Yes, he still is, I guess.
Yeah, he's still my favorite Beatle. But Buck Owens, he was an entrepreneur. And he created that entrepreneurial model for other country musicians to follow. So let's hear a little Act Naturally.
They're gonna put me in the movies.
Great song. Great song. And we should mention at this point that country music hit the airwaves big time on TV with the show Hee Haw.
Yeah, that was his show, right?
And Buck Owens was a regular on that. Well, Flat and Scruggs were on it. We'll get to Flat and Scruggs when we talk about bluegrass.
Bluegrass, yes.
For sure. But yeah, it's Roy Clark. I remember it, and they really like camped it up with the country imagery and, you know, sort of caricatures of country players in country life. Yeah. Did you ever watch any?
No, I don't. In India, we wouldn't get that.
We didn't get Hee Haw in India.
In fact, in India, the television came so late, actually. It was not there till I think about the 70s.
Really?
As far as I remember, television came in maybe late 60s, 70s.
What did you do without television?
No, that was a great part of it. You had to do other things.
Yes.
At that time, there was much more socializing. You didn't stay at home all the time. You went out, you played in in your building, your apartment compound, you played cricket or whatever, you had more friends,
Yeah. More social interactions for real, like face to face.
We went to see movies, but it was all, it's different. So, and even the first television we got in, that time there was the only evening program, which was like it was a government-run station. So it was there was no advertising or anything. It was all public announcements, and I would have plus, say an Indian movie, an Indian classical artist, things like that.
Well, I'm sorry you missed Hee Haw.
So we didn't have too many. That's why, I knew a lot of what was happening by reading comics. Roy Rogers and Gene Autry, all this country. Yes, Superman, all those DC Marvel comics. And then you have the Westerns. I liked the Westerns a lot. So I used to read all the Western comics. Two Gun Kid, Billy the Kid, all those things. Yeah, those comics.
Did not know that about you, Yusuf. Very well. Let's back about the cowboy music. But now we're moving on to the man in black. The man himself, Johnny Cash, who also had a voice that has traveled
unique,
a million miles of Justy during
And it was
traveling.
you hear him and it's Johnny Cash. That was unique stuff.
Totally identifiable. He had been in prison as well, but then he used his powers for good by advocating for prison reform and all of those. And then he married Jean Carter. He married right into the first family, country royalty. And everybody knows about their romance because the movies.
This was the movie Ring of Fire, was it?
Or was it called I Walk the Line?
Or was it called Walk the Line?
I don't know, but it was pretty.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And Joaquin Phoenix played his part. Great.
And Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah, Reese Witherspoon.
June Carter.
Yeah.
But Johnny Cash's music is totally identifiable, and the songwriting, Ring of Fire, gosh, I love that.
Ring of Fire, Walk the Line.
Well, we're gonna hear I Walk the Line.
All of that, and we'll. In fact, the other ones, Ring of Fire and also Prison Blues, we'll play.
Good.
We'll have it on our list as well. So.
And he's the first guy I think that started doing concerts.
He did concerts, and actually, I think he also had a lot of influence on Bob Dylan. And the writing part of it.
And didn't he have a TV? She had a TV show.
I think, he had a Johnny Cash show. Yeah.
Yes.
I see them now because they're in reruns and some of the streaming platforms.
But we're going to hear I Walk the Line.
I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep my eyes wide open all the time. I keep the ends out for the tie that binds. Because you're mine, I walk the line.
Wow. He's such an interesting artist as well because he explored all of these ideas of Christianity and sin and forgiveness and No, so you brought this sort of spiritual element to the music, as well as songs about being in prison and that kind of stuff. He seemed to be a very deep thinker and a little bit tortured.
Yes. He seemed to have a split personality. Sometimes when I saw the movie, I tried to concentrate on the music. So
Oh yeah, the music is great.
Yeah.
Which leaves us with Willie Nelson,
one of the greatest
one of the greatest
outlaws, actually.
being the greatest of outlaws, marijuana advocates.
Again, like Dolly Parton, he did music with everybody. He performed with so many different. Performed with Eric Clapton. He did something with Wynton Marsalis. He did.
We did a whole couple of records of standards.
Yes.
Just it.
Yes, standards. He was on, I think, Nora Jones. I mean, he was.
And recorded it with the Manhattan Transfer.
He was always he had that sort of if there's anyone who really amongst the country musicians who exemplify the universality of music was it was Willie Nelson.
And he brought the bandana back into fashion style and braids for men.
And then the farm aid that he set up.
Oh yeah, well that
was incredible. When he saw the farmers were suffering, he set that up before anybody. Everyone was talking about other types of things, and he said that in our own country, farmers are suffering, and he got to do something for them. And he said,
yeah. I think it was a time when we were giving foreign aid to a lot of different countries.
Yes,
and he looked inward, and put his money where his mouth was.
And he had the great shows. He had almost so many musicians performing in.
And a great songwriter.
Yeah.
So we're going to hear "On the Road Again," a song all of us have sung. Listen, in the touring
and he's
world.
always been on the road. He used to travel. He was one of the constant travelers.
Right, with a bus. House as a bus. And the country stars didn't skimp on their buses.
Yeah.
In the olden times when you could afford when gas wasn't, $7 or $8 a gallon, and you could afford to have do a bus tour.
On the road again, just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends, and I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again, going places that I've never been, seeing things that I may never see again. I can't wait to get on the road again.
So there we have it, ending with a real headliner.
Yes, we're ending with a big headline.
And while we're talking about country music and African-American musicians coming into country, one thing, of course, before we go, I'd like to once again say that please go on our website, musictheunifyingforce.com, where you will get all our Unify list, all our other previous episodes if you've not seen them. And we would really like you to comment, to know if there's anything you would like, or if you have any questions, or even if you have any comments, please, we'd love some honest comments so that we can, make it even better for you.
Absolutely. And we would like to invite you to join us for the next episode, which is going to tackle bluegrass music, which is a whole nother genre of wax. No, it's a ball of wax. Whole other ball of wax.
And you would again see the connections with that and all the other forms of music. It's instruments that which sometimes were not very American as such, also being played, instruments brought from other countries. So it's really
an acoustic music,
more acoustic
and more jazzy, American music. Not jazz itself, but very similar in certain ways that we'll talk about.
And as I said earlier, you'll have all the full songs, the links to all the full songs that we played on the Unify list, as well as more songs. So please listen to them. The best way about appreciating music and having fun with music is listening to it. So
I agree.
I am Yusuf Gandhi.
I'm Janis Siegel. Please join us again for the next episode, and thanks for listening.
And we're going to end with one of the greatest R&B singers. Did an album on country music called Modern Sounds for Country Music. And he's singing a standard, I Can't Stop Loving You. That's Ray Charles, Mr. Ray Charles.
I can't stop loving you. I've made up my mind to live in memories of the lonesome time.